Originally, it was supposed to be this week. I'd be joined by two other members of the YWC, but I'm pushing that back for one more week. I can tell you right now that next week, joining me on the Triple Threat will be one of the three members of the End of the Rope show, and then my good buddy, Randy Orton fan, numero dos, according to the Blue Borton, Chase Oliver 68. So make sure you tune in for that. But in the meantime, that means you get me talking about three assorted wrestling topics, and I'm going to go off on them, so let's get started. Now, granted, from my perspective, when I found out earlier this week that Alberto Del Rio had been released from the company due to unprofessional conduct, I'm like, so? I don't really care. Good riddance. I always thought he was an overforced, overrated piece of trash and never understood what the WWE saw in him. This is a guy that failed to really ever connect with the audience, couldn't even consistently get a reaction when he had gotten as much emphasis as 99% of the roster could only hope to ever get. But yet they would still push him and they would still feature him like he mattered. I'm like, you wouldn't even treat a lot of the white wrestlers in your company like this, let alone if it was an Asian or a black guy. That's what I don't get sometimes about the WWE. They pushed ADR to the moon, I think, specifically because he was Hispanic, because he was a Mexican wrestler. But like I said, if he was black, if he was Asian, even if he was white, frankly, they wouldn't have done so. It was always astounding to me. So my whole reaction to him getting fired basically was, I don't care. Good riddance. Who cares? Almost. But then, as oftentimes is the case, especially with the professional wrestling business, the devil is in the details, and there seems to always be more to the story. And as the week continued to progress, I actually did start to care. And, I thought it was very interesting when they released him that they didn't use his real name. They just said he'd been released for unprofessional conduct. I'm like, what could he do that was so unprofessional that he would sit there and get fired like that as instantaneously as he did? And apparently, it was his reaction to the head of WWE social media making a flat-out racist joke about the fact that he wasn't going to clean off his plate because that was ADR's job to do so. And then once ADR found out about it and confronted him about it, this guy, A, didn't apologize, and B, reportedly smiled in his face, which led to ADR saying, what did the five fingers say to the face? Slap! I'm ADR, bitch! I hope that's what he said when he smacked the taste out of his fucking mouth. And you know what I say now? Good for you, ADR. Good for fucking you. Now, is that necessarily the best way to handle something? By somebody saying something flat out racist like that and then laughing in your face about it, showing no remorse or no sympathy for what they said or no acknowledgement of them actually being in the wrong? Is that right for you to necessarily smack them in the face? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not sitting here and condoning this because in general I tend to be a bit of a pacifist. However, this does speak to the ridiculously racist culture of the WWE, in my opinion. The fact that somebody could sit there and just flat out make a straight up racist comment like this, and we're firing the guy that was the one that was originally offended. Instead of firing the guy or suspending the guy that made the racist joke and created this uncomfortable work environment that any company's HR department would love to get a hold of, we fired the guy that retaliated because he flat out took offense to something that he should have taken offense to. Now, granted, like I said, maybe slapping the guy 6 ways from Sunday wasn't the best way to go. But in this case, I fully support ADR. Fuck that bitch. I hope you smacked him twice, forehand and backhand. Because I'm tired of this racist culture of the WWE, and it clearly shows just how deeply ingrained and embedded into the infrastructure of the company this racist culture is. We're firing the guy that was originally offended. We're not doing anything because, frankly, he still has his job to the guy who actually made the racist statement. And all the while, we're going out of our way as a company, the WWE is, to keep spinning it on ADR and saying that he is the one that conducted himself in an unprofessional manner. He is the one that deserves the blame here. That's so typical of the WWE. Instead of acknowledging the problem that they have, they sit there and blame other people. So to the surprise of absolutely no one, since it was taped weeks ahead of time and all the footage had been released and leaked out on the interwebs for all to consume and see, and the fact that TNA themselves actually spoiled it at the end of last week's show, letting us know that indeed Dixie Carter was going to go through the table, this week on Impact we finally got to see it. Hashtag it happens. Are you happy now, people? Do you feel some great sense of joy out of seeing this happen? Are you pleased with the fact that TNA devoted weeks upon weeks upon weeks of key television time to building up to this? You know, like I said, I understood from the beginning that plenty of people were going to get their kicks out of this. Plenty of people were going to get some short-term enjoyment out of this. Okay, but my question is, what was the big deal about this? Dixie Carter goes through the fucking table. Whoopity-doo! Now what does the company do? And where do you really get anything out of this? I mean, unless you're going to tell me that Dixie Carter is going to be off of television for a long time as a character, maybe forever, then what was the point? This was all some dumb ECW angle type shit. And the only person that seems to really get any benefit out of this are the guys that are over 40, the Bully Rays and the Devons and the Tommy Dreamers of the fucking world. What was the big deal about this? And even once I saw it, knowing weeks ahead of time that it had happened, now it comes to the time that it happens, it meant even less to me. I'm like, oh, Dixie Carter went through a table. I suppose I'm supposed to give a shit. But I don't. Where do you go from here now, TNA? Where do you go from here now? That's the question. And that was my whole concern about this storyline and angle, is what was this leading up to? Was this going to be any big-time payoff, or was it just going to be this kind of cheap thrill, and then the next week you're left wondering what the fuck's going to happen? I had my doubts going into it, and I had my reason for my doubts. But even in this case, I didn't think this would potentially be dropped so soon. There are reports going on out there, and based off of what you're seeing, it seems to indicate that this whole black faction, this whole new nation with Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston and Big E might have already been dropped by creative. It might have already been dropped as an angle, as a storyline, as everything. Why? This is just typical WWE. Here's an opportunity to take a narrative about your company, capitalize off of it, make it your own, and do something positive that could positively potentially affect several of your younger talents that are looking for a way to kind of break through that glass ceiling in your company. Now, after less than a month, a little over 2 weeks, you're sitting there and it seems like giving up on the whole idea entirely. Sitting there and giving up on the whole concept. Why? Is it because you had no interest in it from the very beginning? This was just a short-term knee-jerk reflex reaction to the bad press you were getting about your racism in the company? WWE, you have a problem. I'm tired of you trying to spin this like it's not a problem. I am tired of the fucking idiotic WWE sheep that also try to spin this like this isn't a fucking problem. Step one to recovery is always admitting you have a problem. In WWE, you clearly have a problem. And to me, the fact that less than a month into this shit, you're already planning on dropping it and you're already going away from it just indicates how much of a problem you really freaking have. Why even start going into it if you're not going to go anywhere with it? Why even potentially tease it if you're not going to do anything with it? Just why? Yes, because you did such great things with Kofi Kingston over the past several years as a babyface, right? Yeah, because you were doing such awesome things with Big E as a babyface, right? Yeah, because you were just doing so awesome with anything associated with Xavier Woods, right? Why not push the creative envelope just a little bit, God forbid? Why not do something just a little bit different? And why not actually try to sit there and make some new stars and make some damn money off of it? Oh, it doesn't matter. We got John Cena versus Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. That's what the people like. You know, even if that's your whole fixation, is it's all about SummerSlam and it's about Night of Champions. Okay, even if those two shows rock the house and they really deliver, then what do you do after that, dumbasses? Ding dong, dumb dicks. How about you sit there and try and do something to build some new stars and some different type of stars besides the pearly white ones and the Samoans that you always love to push? It's fucking ridiculous. It's so typical of the WWE. You go with the storyline, you go with the concept, and it doesn't even last 3 weeks. So let me know what you think in the comments section. What do you think about ADR slapping the taste out of that guy's mouth? Are you with him? Do you think it was the right way to do things? And what do you think should happen to the social media employee that reportedly said those things to ADR? And do you think it represents a problem in WWE? What's your reaction to Dixie Carter going through a table? Good, bad, otherwise. And what do you think about the whole thought of WWE already dropping this storyline with Xavier Woods and this new nation only after a couple of weeks? Let me know everything. Make sure you stay tuned all week long for more great content here on OTRS Central. I'll be back next week with one of the guys from the In the Rope Show and Chase Oliver 68 for another edition of the OTRS Central Triple Threat video series.